Absolutely shocked that 60 days after they gave that guidance that they don't have the visibility in one of the largest regions that has one of the best growth profiles. Year over year, China was up 16% in the quarter that they reported on November 1st. And their lack of visibility on that, I just think is really interesting it was 18% of the quarter. So to me, you couple that with the fact that they just changed the way that they give guidance. They said, we're not going to report units. I think there's some funky stuff going on over there, and it's not particularly good. And it is likely to see its way through for a few more quarters.
It's just disappointing to hear Tim Cook, who I think embodies corporate governance, and I think this company is so important to markets right now. By the way, we're seeing possibly how disproportionately important it is to markets, but we'll get to that in a second. That it's doing investors a disservice to give guidance on iPhone shipments. I mean, how can we say that 2 months, as Dan's pointing out, after the moment where it's never been more important. He said this is 100% iPhone and it's basically China. Don't we need to know shipments? And that's disappointing.
Yeah, and so that's the problem, right? You could have said, and I have said it, that Apple botched that announcement with not having the units out there anymore. You might have passed that off and said, OK, they made a mistake, and let's give them a pass on that. But now you have to question what's going on behind the scenes. Is there something else there? And I think investors are going to take a bit before they kind of trust the company again, and that's going to weigh on the stock.
So Guy, Tim Cook, you heard him there at the very end of the interview. He said that our stock is an incredible value right here. They mentioned buying back shares, and they've already been a huge buyer of their stock. Is it an incredible value here?
It's interesting, right? I mean, I thought it was incredible value $70 ago. I think a lot of people thought that as well. I mean, valuation has been a reason to own it forever, effectively, and now we're at levels where people are making a valuation argument. But I think the guys bring up a good point. Is it a credibility? Is it a credibility situation now? And quite frankly, I can only speak for myself, but I should have listened to Skyworks a month or so ago, Micron a month or so ago, Corvo when they said smartphones were slowing down. Now you wonder if Micron has to re-guide and if Skyworks has to re-guide. To Tim's point, what he was getting at, the trickle-down effect it has in the broader markets could be staggering in terms of where the cues are. You're seeing that now.
I mean, I can't even believe I'm going to ask this question, but has Apple gone from a stock that was simply pulling back with the overall market to a falling knife? Apple, of all these stocks, people are going to be afraid to touch it here, down 7%.
There's been a couple instances over the last 10 years where this stock has had peak to trough declines of about 45%. So we're going almost getting there. What was it, 230 or something like that? I mean, it hasn't been abnormal. The difference is it's leading the market this time. It was actually able to kind of have those corrections as the cycles changed. Think back to 2012, think back to 2015, 16. This has happened before.
And during those times, you could argue that those were Apple specific. But everything that Tim Cook mentioned is everything the market's been worried about. Trade, rates, dollar, all of those things are macroeconomic issues that they have no control over, and that could broaden out to the rest of the market.
It doesn't sound to me like an overnight issue by any
stretch.
It's not an overnight issue. Talking about this for a long time.
I think, Scott, you're also maybe getting to the point that, yeah, it's macro, but it's also micro. I mean, they talked about battery costs, and they talked about different parts of, the upgrade. They also talked about it's a micro issue when you talk about the upgrade cycle doesn't allow for the subsidization of these iPhones. It's a very big issue. But remember, we are talking about a hardware company. We've seen hardware companies drop like a stone before, companies that look to be bulletproof. I don't think that this is that falling knife moment, Scott. So I still do like the services income.
So 60% of their sales are hardware, and it's always been the iPhone company, right? So they're talking about a 38% gross margin. They own all of the profitability in the entire smartphone market, okay? But here's the thing. In China, they are number 3 in market share behind Samsung, Huawei, we know that name, right? And then it's Apple, and then it's Xiaomi. So they've been losing share domestically to Asian OEMs, the hardware makers. And then they have one other thing. This is really important. WeChat, okay? So when you think about the ASP, the average selling price of an iPhone, when they reported last time was $793. They're making these bigger phones, right? That is a massive percentage of the per capita income in China, right? Okay, those other phones, the Android-based ones, they are about a third of the cost. So then all of a sudden you look at these services like WeChat, okay, 10-cent music. That's what Chinese consumers are going 4 right now. So they're not as concerned about upgrading to that fashion statement of iPhone anymore. That's been going on for 2 years now.
But let me. So I agree. I think we just have said that. So how about though they are going to have record services profit? They are actually in some of these smaller businesses, whether it's Apple Pay, whether it's Apple Music. They're not reasons to go out and buy the stock. But the bottom line is record profits in a services company that at least they believe that's where they should be. They still got $130 billion of cash on a market cap.
but you have to ask yourself.
To your point, though, you got a reason for me to buy the stock tonight with this pullback of
no.
$11,
Yeah.
7%.
And that's the problem is this peak profits then, right? Because the entire thesis of this is that, yeah, they're going to grow iPhone sales and it's going to increase and their installed base is going to grow, but then they're going to be able to extract revenue off that. If your installed base is slowing or stalled or stopped, then you have to reevaluate what the thesis for the company is. And I think that's going to take a couple quarters for investors to digest that.
If Cook is worried about the impact in China of this trade fight, and then you have our trade rep, Lighthizer, today saying that additional tariffs may be necessary to get China to strike the kind of deal that the administration really wants. Okay, what is that going to mean
so to answer
for
your
all
question,
of these companies that are being negatively impacted by China's slowdown?
So the question you asked that Brian answered is there a reason to buy it? Okay, so I can play the other side of it. I can give you reasons to buy it. Does this force the hand now of President Trump and President Xi, a company of this magnitude, making comments like this? Maybe there is some deal that's going to be made. That would be market positive. And the two biggest buyers of Apple have been Apple. And what does Mr. Buffett say about Apple tomorrow? Because I got to believe somebody's on the phone asking him his opinion right now. So there are potentially some catalysts to the upside tonight.
Should we be surprised by this, though? I mean, I hear you almost being somewhat affronted by this news today. I mean, we were told 2 months ago that emerging markets, China and FX were bad news.
The announcement
for a
itself,
so,
maybe not. The scale and size,
That's
absolutely.
the scale.
I don't
That's
think
the stunning part, wouldn't you say?
Right.
I don't think anyone.
It's 8.3%.
Huge cut in revenue.
Guide is a big deal. But I kind of got the sense that going into their most important season, this is what they were telling us. They had some insight into that. And let's be clear. I mean, this was a $230 stock. It's corrected down to the mid 140s. And I think you've had a market that's priced in a lot of pain.
Yeah, I just think that when you think about this company that is selling a premium product, primarily focused on China, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about China. There are these other macro implications. We're seeing this right now. Listen, I just think that the surprise here isn't that they missed, okay? The surprise, like you just said, Scott, is the magnitude of it. These are not one-quarter fixes. I mean, this is going to take a while to work itself through here. So I do not think that you have to go buy this stock at $140. It just doesn't. There are better opportunities right now in the market where there's going to be more clarity sooner.